Shell says it has agreed to sell its Nigerian onshore oil asset, that's Shell Petroleum Development Company of Nigeria Limited, to Renaissance, a consortium of 5 companies. Oyeyemi Oke, partner at AO2 Law, says the deal awaiting government's approval needs to clear issues around remediation, restoration and repatriation to host communities. Take a look.
I think it shows that the local or the indigenous players have come of age, right? And I think the beautiful thing is the synergy of the consortium, looking at the various members of the consortium that have come to form the Renaissance Energy Africa entity that is taking over or that intends to take over Shell's onshore assets. I think it shows that with synergy, more can be achieved. So I think it's a step in the right direction, although I have a few concerns. I think the first would be, let us not find ourselves in the imbroglio with regards to perhaps regulatory issues, such as what has happened with the Seplat MPNU transaction. But I mean, looking at the crop of the current members of the Renaissance Energy group, I think it's a good, I would say, team, and it's a good group. And obviously, it shows that with synergy and more collaborations, I think people or industry players can achieve more.
And talking about what the next chapter would look like as well now, the consortium Renaissance Oil would take up some of the issues around spills, theft and sabotages that Shell has had to deal with. Let's talk about the terms here, especially with regards to you talking about regulatory concerns. It's still waiting for the approval of the government.
Yes. So two things you've mentioned, perhaps the security issues with regards to some of the challenges Shell has faced operationally with regards to some of its onshore assets. I think those challenges may not necessarily go away because you have new owners, right? The new owners, because they're largely indigenous companies, may be able to understand some of these challenges better. And you would see that also the new owners, all of them individually, own assets and have been able to perhaps play in the space of resolving community issues. So it shouldn't be a new thing for the Renaissance Energy group in order to resolve some of the security and perhaps environmental issues. But it is a challenge that I think they should put in the front burner in order also to address both what I would call the environmental impact of oil exploration and perhaps the social impact. That's on one side. On the regulatory side, there's always been a debate whether, the lawyers, especially the lawyers, would always debate whether this type of transaction, since it's a share acquisition and not an asset acquisition, whether there's a requirement or there's the triggering of the preemption rights under the joint operating agreement, perhaps between Shell and its JV partners led by NNPCL. But I think beyond that, in my view, to the extent that perhaps government is not looking or may not be looking at exercising any type of preemption, whether overtly or covertly, I think government should support a transaction such as this. We should also have a situation whereby there's sufficient clarity with regards to how the transition will work, and perhaps we shouldn't have the similar type of, I would say, maybe confusion or imbroglio as we saw the Seplat and any PNU transaction.
No doubt there is no walking away from the issues around remediation, restoration and also the repatriation to host communities. These are important elements and fine details that have to be attended to. But it's also important to know that Shell still has its LNG plant and other assets in Nigeria. But for you now, for the year 2024, how concerned are you about the wave of divestments? Yes, we are looking at the whole conversation point around the shift to renewable energy, but are you concerned about the wave of divestments?
I look at this from two angles. perhaps maybe my area of concern may be reduction in foreign direct investments for certain types of assets, right? That may be a concern for me, right? And how I look at this also is perhaps maybe Nigeria is not, one, a competitive environment for the oil and gas space, and two, perhaps there could also be what I would say a shift in investment focus for some of these IOCs, right? Considering that we're in a transition phase, right, to cleaner fuels, and perhaps they want to deploy capital which they may have realized from the divestments to other types of sources of energy. So I think the concern for me would be Nigeria should also be careful so as not to just find itself in a situation whereby it's not attractive enough for FDIs. That's on one side. Perhaps on the other side would be maybe it is actually a good thing for the local players, right, to be able to also step up to be able to explore and exploit this natural resource, perhaps for the betterment or the interests of Nigerians.
Yes.
But I think my view is that some of their divestments have not gone well, right? But I think I'm significantly optimistic with the crop of perhaps the potential new owners of the Shell onshore assets.
Mr. Oke, wrapping up the conversation now, as Nigeria is looking towards ramping up its production volumes, we also have to take a look much more keenly towards our oil surveillance and infrastructure, the entirety of our architecture as a whole. The NNPC has come once again announcing reports of 15 illegal pipeline connections and 83 illegal refineries in Niger Delta just in the week that was. Now, this is highly concerning. How do we beef up this surveillance structure?
One of the good things which I see the NNPCL doing also is not just resting on its oars. You would see perhaps maybe in the last 6 months to 1 year, they continue to uncover either illegal refineries, illegal pipelines, and illegal infrastructure. Security cannot be a one-off issue. You can't just deal with it one-off and you think you go to sleep, right? It's going to be a continuous process. I've mentioned time and again, especially during my interviews with CNBC, that the issues with regards to illegal infrastructure, illegal refineries, illegal pipelines, I think should be tackled not only through violence, not only through force. We should also look at what is triggering some of this illegal activity, which sometimes are one, either environmental, social issues, right? And we also should not shy away from addressing this issue. When I say we now, I would say the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people, right? Some of the triggers for some of these illegal activities are also embedded in perhaps issues around social issues, issues around poverty and the like. So in as much as NNPC continues to tackle these issues on a consistent basis, I think there has to be also another approach, which would also be looking at what are the sources of some of these problems. How do we deal with the poverty? How do we deal with environmental issues? So that the youths that are looking to some of these illegal acts can actually redirect their focus into more productive and legal activities.